Hello everybody, I'm Mitz and welcome back to Lps Series 101, where I show you my tips and tricks on making an Lps series start to finish. Today, we're going to be talking about one of my favorite topics, characters. How to write relatable and interesting characters, what to think about when you're creating a character, and so much more than that. So if you're interested, go ahead and subscribe and let's just hop right into it. A good character is a relatable character, a character that the audience can relate to and see a little bit of themselves in. This is why all good characters have to have flaws. No good character is perfect. They all have flaws and you need a flaw in a character to make it interesting. Real people also have flaws and real people are what we're looking for. So keep that in mind as we progress in writing your character. Now, what I usually start with when creating a character is the basic info, which I call the character ID. I usually put basic technical stuff there, like age, gender, very basic things. If I have an idea for an LPS to cast in this character, I already write it down. If not, that's okay, we're gonna talk about casting in another time, but for now, I'm just gonna write the most basic things that you can have, just like in a real ID card. Now, after I've done that, I usually start coming up with their personality. If you already have an idea or a spark of what your character kinda is gonna feel like, this is a great place to start putting that down. Personality can range from so many different types of people and actions, so I like taking inspiration from either real people or characters on TV, in books, or even yourself. When I write, I find that using real life elements really helps me connect with the story, so if this is the same to you, I highly recommend it. In this stage, you just want the very basic, uncomplicated explanation of the character, and I would recommend that if you have a group of characters, make them different from each other, don't make them similar. I would also recommend putting likes and dislikes in this section, like what do they like, do they have any specific things that they don't like, and you're gonna expand on that later, but this is the most basic explanation of who your character is. Now, throughout the story, a character needs motivation. Sometimes in writing, they call it wants and needs, what the character wants and what they really need. It just means that your character has to have something to chase after. And it doesn't even need to be anything really big. For example, it can be just, I don't know, getting a cup of coffee, or like climbing a mountain, or getting a girl, or whatever. The character needs to have something that they chase after. It can be a romantic interest, it can be a personal goal, it can be anything you want, so this is what is going to drive their own story forward. If you want to get a little complicated with it, sometimes people think they need something and then apparently they need something else. So for example, if somebody wants to solve their issues with a romantic partner but finds out that what they really needed is their family or something like that. A lot of the times people will think they want something and then it turns out that this wasn't even the answer to their issue. So if you want to add something that you think they need and it turns out they need something else, you can totally do that. Now when we have the basic things about your character, you're gonna start thinking about their backstory. It depends on how detailed you want it. I really like writing like super detailed backstories, but you totally do not have to do that. You can just put like very simple things like where they grew up, how's their family situation, who were their friends growing up, things that are relevant, because the way a person grows up and the way a backstory shapes a person is really important to who they turn out to be later in life. So you cannot just skip this part, but you also don't have to put that much thought into it. You can also just do it very basically, like you don't have to expand too much, but a lot of the things that they do today are going to be affected by the things that they went through when growing up. If you have more extreme cases of like a childhood trauma or stuff like that, this is very relevant to who they are today, so I would highly recommend also mentioning that. Even if it's totally like regular life that's not extreme at all, the way a person grows up always going to be affecting the person that they grow up to be. After you figure out who they are, you kind of need to know why they are this way, which is where the backstory is relevant. I briefly mentioned flaws earlier because it's the most important thing about a character. Flaws, quirks, and imperfections are what makes or breaks a character. Every character has to have flaws. There's no perfect people in the world. It has to affect them in some way. Flaws can be so many things, ranging from impulsivity, anger, jealousy, anything like that. And you don't have to be shy to use those words in your creations, like nobody's perfect. It makes the story a lot more interesting, a lot more engaging, and also our characters a lot more relatable. Nobody's perfect, again, and people are going to relate to people that are imperfect just like them, way more than people that are just plastic toys, essentially. Humans are humans, and although we're making our stories with plastic toys as actors, we try to make it as human as possible. Now, after you have your basic information, personality, quirks, backstory, all of that, you can start thinking about your character arc. Now, a character arc is essentially the character's personal story, how they progress and change throughout the story. Because another rule of thumb of good characters is that they always have to change. Good characters are not static, just like real people. Character arcs can range from so many types of different things. Think about real people, like the transformations that we go through in real life are not like categorized by different types of stories, but arcs can relate to the character's personal growth with themselves, finding out things about themselves. It can be related to their family, their loved life, so many things. If you have a fantasy series, it can also be related to fantasy themed things. There are so many types of different character arcs out there and so many interesting ones, so I highly recommend you check out. There's so many lists out there of ideas for character arcs. If you don't have one already, I highly recommend you check those out. To build your own character arc, you have to remember from earlier what they want and what they need. And of course, you need to have an obstacle in the middle, which I talked about in the last episode. To make a good story, you have a character, they want something, and something is preventing them from getting it. Then they overcome that obstacle, and they either get what they want, or they realize they don't need it. Character arcs are going to be very personal to your characters, so there's no one template of writing them. It's basically what your character wants, what prevents them from getting it, and how they react to it. I'm going to give you a very simplified example. Let's say my character wants to get a coffee, but somebody is stalling them at line at the coffee shop. Their character arc is going to be figuring out how they get their coffee without bumping into that person. Or they end up realizing they don't even need coffee and they don't want to drink coffee anymore because it makes their head ache or whatever. Just a very simplified way of showing you how character arcs work, but again, it's very personal to you and your character and your writing style. If you want to get a step further, which you do not have, this is completely optional, you can make a character dynamics chart. If you have a specific group of characters that your series follows, why are they together? Do they have history together? Are some of them familiar with others more than others? It's good to know what your characters are about when they're together, and their dynamics with other people reflect what they feel inside. So, just like real people, again, it's important to remember that. I like doing what I call a dynamics chart, where I write down all of my characters' names and think about how they interact with each other. This relies on whether they know each other for a long time or a little bit of time, if they grew up together, all that sort of stuff that affects character interactions. You don't have to do a dynamics chart, but if you want and it helps you, I highly recommend it. Also, it's super fun to think about your characters just like real people and how they interact with the world around them and with each other. Of course, it's going to be affected by your character's personality and also flaws, so keep that in mind when you create your chart and think about how they interact with each other. And if you're out of ideas, you can always use real life examples just like yourself, characters from TV, anything you want to help inspire you create a beautiful, great character that you love. This is basically all I wanted to talk about the characters. I really think this is a very personal process. Everybody has their own type of writing style and how they connect to their own characters and what they think about. Some people don't even like planning all of that, it's just me, so I hope I gave you some useful tools today to help you plan out your characters. I really hope I gave you some useful tools today to create your characters and flesh them out. If you have any questions, of course, I would love to answer them in the comments, and I will see you in my next video. Thank you so much for watching, and bye bye!